Welcome to another episode of the Agape Purpose Podcast. And today, I'm very, very honored to be joined by my predecessor, Abby Duncan. Abby, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And of course, we have the lovely Shelly again.
So happy to be back. Thank you.
All right. So I just want to get started off by asking, how did you get connected to Agape in the first place?
Well, I'll answer this with a baby changes everything. So the first baby to change everything is obviously Jesus. He has changed everything for me. And his love and his grace and compassion have transformed my life. And I'm passionate about sharing that with others. And then the second baby that changed everything was my husband and I were pregnant with our firstborn Braxton in 2013. And I just felt this, I was working doing e-commerce selling small engine parts. It was not my favorite. It taught me a lot, but not my favorite. And I got this stirring in my spirit. I don't know, just being pregnant and a baby coming. I thought, God, this is not really what I want to be doing. But what do you have for me? And it's interesting. I was about 6 months pregnant, and I was at my parents' church in Venice. My husband and I actually live in Parrish, about an hour north of here. And I was there one Sunday, and I was in the bathroom, and I heard these two women talking about this new job this one woman had and how much she loved it. And she said, we pray at work, and we serve missionaries. And I literally come out of the bathroom stall, just pregnant and candid, and said, where do you work? I said, that sounds amazing. And she said, Agape Flights. And she told me a little bit about Agape, and I said, that's in Venice, Florida? How have I not heard about this? And I jokingly said next, are they hiring? And she was like, actually, I think we just posted, on Friday, I think we posted a communications job or something for a website. And I was like, are you serious? I said, that's my wheelhouse. I went to school at Indiana University for communication and culture and journalism. And I've always loved missions. And I thought, okay, is this what this stirring is? Is this what I'm supposed to do? So I went home. I applied for the job, got a call from Agape, and went through the interview process, had a great connection. But I'm 6 months pregnant. Baby changes everything, right? And they need someone in Haiti doing video work. They need all sorts of stuff done in this short amount of time. And I'm like, God, why did you lead me here at this time? This isn't going to work. And they, Alan and Carol agreed. I agreed. This probably isn't the best fit now. And I really left questioning, God, why would you lead me there? And he just said, trust me. Okay, God. So fast forward, the baby changed everything again. Once he was born, I quit my full-time job and thought, no, I want nothing more than to just be involved in my child's life. What was I thinking? I could have taken on a full-time plus job. And so I was serving tables at night, and then he was about 8 months old, and I got this stirring in my spirit again, I need to do something. There's something, I'm not happy serving tables right now. I'm called to do something right now, but I don't know what it is. So I got online, searched for jobs, saw this one at a health food company doing marketing, which I'm kind of a health nut. And I'm like, that's perfect. That's what it is. So I apply for it, go through it, get excited about it. And they offered me the job. And I looked at the offer. And I was like, no, this isn't right. This is a full-time plus job too. You said you didn't want this, but what is it? And God said, trust me. I'm not kidding. I don't know if it was that day or the next day. I declined that job. And Carol, the director of development at the time, emailed me, and she said, just reaching back about a year later and just wondering how you are. We often think about you, wondering how that baby is. I shoot a quick email back and say, I love being a mom. I'm just serving tables at night. It's a great balance because I get to work, but I get to raise my child. And she's like, let's have a conversation. And she said, we're in a lot better place than we were a year ago. Unfortunately, the person that they hired at the time just wasn't a great fit long term, but they did some things that set some good foundation at the time. And she said, what if I could honor you being a mom and you could fill this role? And I was like, really? Are you serious? And I'm like, thank you, God. And so truly his trust and his time, that's a long story, I know, for that. But all that to say, like, his timing and his trust are always perfect. And so I just love to share that story because even as a reminder for me, sometimes when I want it now, like I'm a millennial, we want things, we want things now, right? And he says, no, just trust me. You know, my timing is perfect.
I love that. I love that each story that brings everybody to Agape is so unique, but is so filled with God's calling, God's patience, God's timing.
Right.
And you can clearly see that in you. So let's fast forward. You take on that role. What does that look like at the beginning for you?
Well, at the beginning, it's funny. Carol looked at my skill set and she said, okay, well, I know you haven't really done this or done that. And I'm like, oh, I can figure it out. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, no, I can figure it out. And I think that's been a lot of what my role at Agape was. I had such a heart for the mission and the missionaries that it never mattered what the task was at hand because this job could be very difficult at times.
Listen, I agree.
And if you do not have a heart for what you're doing, it's not going to work. And so every time I'd be like, no, I can try that. I can figure it out. And it was a lot of just growing through that. And I will say so much credit to the leadership at Agape here that they really let me take ownership of that role. And they just trusted me to have a little creativity and freedom and to work it out, but always were there to freely bounce things off of them and collaborate. And so much of that here is you're not just thrown into a silo to do your job. You have a team here that collaborates together. And if you fall, it's not just you falling. It's everyone doing it together.
It's a collective.
Not that usually happens, but
No.
And if you succeed, it's not your success. It's everyone's success, right?
Yes.
It all works together.
And speaking of success, you can see why Abby was so successful in her role here because you are an amazing communicator in everything you say, do, print, photo, because your heart for Christ is behind it. That your lead story right there, that'll preach.
Yes. No, and I just want to like reverberate what you said. I smile because you say the exact same thing I say to my wife. Like the first week on my job, I was like, well, I know how to do most of this, but the stuff I don't know how to do, they're just like right there like, oh, you can figure that. You got this. Like there is no hesitation in the support at Agape. Once you're on the team, man, your family, like they're just going to come alongside you, support you in every way. I want to speak about that. And an example is like InDesign. I came in, I have light work on InDesign. Flightline obviously is created in InDesign. And I was just like, I've never done this before, but guess what? I'm gonna figure this out. And I just built the first Flightline and I had the great support from Shelly right across from me.
Who doesn't know how to do InDesign?
Listen, but you were there to support me. But
again, that just speaks to that collaborative effort and embedded in the culture here at Agape Flights. We rise together, we fall together, but we are in this together because we know the greater purpose is to serve the missionaries in the Caribbean and to do it in a way that brings glory and honor to Jesus Christ.
Yes. I feel like the moment you lose sight of that goal, what are you still doing here then?
Right.
That's the reality of it. So let's keep moving forward. So like, what were some of the expectations of you at that point?
So the daily responsibilities, keeping up with social media, donor communications, whether that be through the Flightline newsletter, which you mentioned, prayer letters, postcards, written emails, events. Gosh, what all? I'm missing a lot of things. There were a lot of day-to-day disaster relief.
Yes.
There were a lot of things, and it always just flowed pretty naturally at the time, and whatever came up. The thing about this job was there was never, I could come in in a day and have clear check boxes of what I wanted to get done in that day.
And then
And then a missionary walks in the door that you don't know is coming, and everything stops, and you talk with them, you pray with them, you encourage them. But at the end of the day, they end up encouraging you way more than you've encouraged them. And your day changes, but it's so much more beautiful from it. And you come out with this great, I'll be honest. If you were just coming in here daily doing check boxes and looking at those brown boxes in the hanger, it's boring and there's no meaning to it. If you're not having the conversations with the missionaries or the donors that come in and share their heart, and if you don't stop and take those opportunities to absorb that and to take from that and extract stories, it's brown boxes.
Yeah, we're just FedEx again at that point. We're just a delivery service with, hey, like we're just helping some people out down in the Caribbean. That's what it is at that point.
It is. And, there's days I remember we had a whole planning day scheduled. I believe it was a planning day in 2022, and we're just planning along, and we get videos and texts come in, and we have a team in Haiti with a plane down there and doing were they doing hurricane relief? Is that
a building service
project? Yeah,
on an island just outside of Lakai.
And our plane has been abducted, and I'm seeing images of it on fire. And guess what? Everything that was on that to-do list today in that planning meeting probably was pushed 2 to 3 months back, right?
Yes.
So the daily tasks here are, yes, there are daily things, the flight line and the social media and things like that. But so much of it is just being flexible and jumping in where you need to be and rolling with it. There's a lot of rolling with it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I can attest to that. So you were talking about disaster relief. Like, I think a lot of times what's lost is when you're working in communications in a nonprofit, what exactly does that look like in your role when a disaster strikes? Like, take, for instance, the plane abduction. What did you immediately spring into to do?
Prayer. First of all, I remember we gathered together and we prayed. And one thing I learned so much at Agape, and I feel so fortunate to have this in my 20s and in my 30s, is have a team, like I said, is so collaborative. We come together and pray. And even in that instance, our team on the ground didn't know that plane had been abducted at that time. So it's not just this person rushing here and this person rushing there. It's, hey, let's come together. Let's come up with a plan. Let's pray about it. And then let's act. Nothing, and in communication here, it's always so careful to have one message going out to people. So Shay at the front desk is going to say the same thing as I'm putting out on social media, and
as I might communicate to donors.
And whether that's disaster or, because if you're not doing that, you're already in chaos, right? You're chaos on top of
Why
chaos.
create more?
Yeah. So I think that's so much of it. So prayer, and then media, just instantly, once they know that there is a disaster, media is blowing up a communication manager's phone. And so a lot of it is organizing that and prioritizing, how do I put this? Who's going to tell that story well, and who is just trying to get in the door because they want a quick flip of a story that they are going to butcher. That sounds terrible, but
no, it's the truth.
That's the voice of experience.
Yes.
Talking.
Yeah. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I do feel blessed in my time here. I had great connections with media outlets, and there were some that just I knew would tell the Agape story well and not create more chaos than what was out there, because they can create their own donated list of things we need. This hangar is then full of 20 pallets of peanut butter that we can't
fly.
We can't fly. That's just an example, but what do they need? Because in a disaster, it's not what we think they need. It's what the missionaries on the ground are telling us they need. And so it's protecting that message all the way through and making sure it's clear in every department. So we think of communications as just to donors sometimes, but it's not. It's a full organization communication as well, a full message.
Yeah, you're just kind of, for lack of better words, you're just kind of the mouthpiece of that institution. Sure. So I think it's interesting hearing your heart about that, because again, it's like, listen, we can sit there, we can panic, we can do this, but going straight to prayer that is the essence of agape. Is
absolutely
what do we solve by just immediately panicking? Let's bring it to God. I mean, Alan was on the podcast, and the first thing he said to me was basically, hey, we go to prayer and everything first. Mm-hmm. If we don't do that, then we failed in our mission to God. And I love just hearing that. Hey, that's been his calling even since before even me. So I love hearing that. And again, this is selfish. I'm just basically trying to take stuff from you that I can utilize as well. And so I just love hearing that.
And both Abby and I have experienced that pray first mentality here through our time. And it's the real deal. We really do pause and pray, because we know we need God's direction. We know we need him to write the next checklist.
Absolutely. And we've seen it. I mean, I can't remember every detail of it, honestly, but I do think that we were down here praying when the plane was attacked and what's our next step. And this wasn't right after it happened, but I mean, within 90 days, if this tells you something about prayer, within 90 days, we had a couple come to us with a plane that they had that would have been a perfect fit for us, because they heard the story in the media. And then a local church had heard about this in the media and provided the exact funds of what this person wanted to sell their plane for. In 90 days, we have a new plane fully paid for that fits our operation perfectly. If you tell me that's not an answer to prayer, I don't know what is, right?
And obviously, when the abduction and burning of the plane was happening, we weren't thinking at that point, what do we need now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But God was preparing our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to receive what he already foresaw. And it was just such an amazing encouragement.
Yes.
After that awful tragedy, and just knowing how much that can set our ministry back, and just what a terrible event for him just to within 90 days bring that story to a completion, a beautiful completion and gift of the 406 that we fly now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I'll be vulnerable and honest here. 2022 personally was a very, very tough year. It's one of those years you go back and you're like, how did I survive that year?
Yeah.
And it was just a mixture of things for me personally. And I really, in that moment, was like, when that plane was attacked, I felt defeated. I thought, what is going on? What are we doing? What? And I hate to say that, because I am such a person of faith. And then, trust me, God said, trust me. And to see that answer to prayer within 90 days was such an encouragement that, again, it's not about me at all, but selfishly, I thought, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah. He doesn't just provide that, if this isn't what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
So it was a huge encouragement to me personally, professionally,
Yeah, well, that kind of leads into what I mean, hearing that after what I want to ask is very unique, is when that happened in 2022, I got to see some of the words that you were creating. And like, one thing that really struck me was you wrote, our hearts are hurting, but God has a plan. I kept seeing that over and over again in Agape's message. How do you write something like that? How do you find that beauty in the chaos in that moment?
I think you have to. You have to. You have to trust him. And like I was saying earlier, there's those tidbits throughout life that God just gives you, and he proves his worthiness and his trust. And you can believe in God, but if you don't trust in him, what is that? That belief it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
If you're not trusting in him, and we've seen it over and over again here, and his faithfulness when things seem impossible.
Impossible.
There have been so many times that I look,
Yes.
we've had this, I'm like, Shelly, how's this going to happen? I'm not doubting God, but
Yeah. We
How?
couldn't see it in our power in any
exactly.
possible way.
that's exactly it. I never doubted that he would do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see, couldn't see, I like to have
Yeah.
that crystal ball sometimes that just,
Yeah. We don't know what God's preparing us to learn through these experiences when they happen in the moment. So what else did you learn about yourself with God in that moment?
yeah. Press on. Press on. Sometimes it's just a matter of pressing on. And like I said, for me, that was selfishly, there was a lot of personal stuff going on. My mom was diagnosed with dementia. I was pregnant again, and I have a big age gap, 11, 8, and 2. So there was a lot of change. There were changes organizationally going on here. My in-laws were going through a tough time. There was just a lot personally. So in that time, it was a press on and pray through, and God's faithful. Like I said, and communicating that. So much of that in communication is, it's funny. I was going through Flightlines this past week in preparation for this, our newsletters, just trying to play through the memories and stuff. And I was talking with my husband, and I think, did I write this? How did I write this? How did I do this at this time? And I think God is so faithful, because I can remember at the time either what was going on or whatever. And he gives you the strength and the words and the vision and the collaboration. Like I said, none of it is done on my own. It was a team effort always. But it was kind of cool to flip through and think he guides it all, right? Yeah.
People are going to be annoyed by me hearing me say, like, man, it's just nice to hear. Because, like, that's what I say every time I see Flightlines done. I'm just like, how did this happen? Like, this is not me. This is God. Like, every time. Because there's stories that are told. I mean, when we get the responses, people are like, thank you so much. Recently we did an article about Keith and Clara. And then was it her daughter that responded?
His daughter.
His daughter, yes. Yeah. And it was just like, it's just a constant reminder of, man, like, when you let God work through you, you let God guide the pen, your fingers on the keyboard, whatever it is, man, things are going to happen.
Right.
Things are going to happen. But if it's you, boy, it's a scary world to live in when you let yourself try to guide those paths, because it's not going to be well done.
I've tried it. It's not good.
So how has your perspective changed now that you're no longer a staff member, but you're still a donor of Agape Flights?
Certainly. I miss being connected here every day. I do. I feel like there is so much that goes on here and on the mission field that you can't possibly fit into all the communication pieces.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I just, miss parts of it, but not any. You are doing a fantastic job. I just know how much actually goes on. And then it makes me think, in your head, everything that's going on, you wish you could just share all of it with everyone, and honestly, on the flip side of that, there's so much that happens on the mission field with I don't even know how many mission partners now, 300 and some still, right? All of those stories that happen and on the field, and that we only get like literally the tiniest glimpse.
Yes.
So anyone listening, this man has a very difficult job. Missionaries help him out.
This is the most encouraging podcast I've ever done, because this is literally the things I keep saying. I'm like, I know these missionaries have stories. Bring them to me. Like, I got the Mark Stocklands of the world, who bring me stuff.
I could tell you, I could count on 2 hands the ones you're going to get repetitive stories from. But I know the work is out there, and I've seen it. And when I've traveled, I've seen it. And communication is so important for them and for us. But he has a tough job, because for every box that goes out, there are literally probably like 5 stories attached to one box. It's probably not just one. It's probably like 5. And we get maybe
half of one.
Yes.
Half of a story.
Yeah, story. And it's digging to get it. It's literally being like a sleuth and putting puzzle pieces together. And that's no fault. The missionaries are so busy, and I can't even imagine.
Of course.
I cannot even imagine. I think about that all the time, what their daily life is like, and the struggles they have to go through. But when you can see, I always called it like beyond the box, the other side of the story. It's amazing, you know, and it's encouraging to the staff. It's encouraging to donors. It's encouraging to anyone who picks that up. Actually,
maybe even other missionaries.
Yeah, it is. It is encouraging.
Because then maybe they can feel not so alone.
Yeah, exactly. There is that, because it is lonely for so many of them. Which is why Agape is huge for them. It's a connection.
That lifeline.
Yeah, when they present us content that we can utilize to show their stories, it makes our donors and the people who follow our socials or whatever, they get to walk alongside them. Like Brian Berman's also another person who's phenomenal at that. He presents stories that just like you are part of that mission once he puts it out for you. It's just he pushes it out in front of you and it's like, let God take over. Yeah. And when they do that, we get to succeed in showcasing what the kingdom's doing.
Absolutely.
And so it's so valuable when that happens. So again, it's just great to hear that, hey, this isn't just my struggle. This has been a struggle that goes forward. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give? Because obviously, you know, you worked in this field. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to get connected?
Connected in the mission?
Into the mission of Agape or just missions altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. To get connected here, the best way is to walk in those front doors sometimes and just see what it's all about. Like I said, when I first heard about this, I was like, this is in Venice? This is in the backyard? There's so many people that this is not a big town, but they don't know this is in the backyard, you know, at the Venice airport. So I think coming in the hangar and seeing the faces of the staff members, the pilots, seeing the operations, seeing each, I think it's powerful to walk in that mailroom. And there's literally a slot with a name for each missionary that we serve. That is their home address. And if you think about that, you know, think of every Amazon package that comes to your door and every letter that comes in the mail. We are that for them and make sure they get it. So I think just to see that is a powerful image, to see the planes and just see what it takes to run this operation. I think that's a great way to get connected. I would say follow social media, subscribe to the podcast.
Listen, I love this. She's a communications person. She's
plug.
Look at that.
Yeah, I would say there are ways, and you know, Alan's monthly prayer letters are a great way to pray alongside Agape, because I do think people want to know what they can do even besides financial donations, and that can be a little bit more difficult with this mission because it's not as much hands-on all the time. There are opportunities for hands-on, but it's a little bit more difficult to be hands-on. You can volunteer here, yes, but if you're trying to, you know, do hands-on giving like
service projects or something. We can't really offer that, but we can, you know, we spend more time highlighting that with our mission partners.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Shelly's great at that.
She is. I miss working with her.
I miss working with you, Abby. It's an interesting dynamic because I miss working with you and I love working with Jacques.
Yeah. Which is how it should be.
It's a both and for me.
That's how it should be. And I was just saying before this podcast, I said, you know, this was my baby for, you know, 8 years. And to see it handed off into good hands blesses me tremendously. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to start wrapping this up and ask you some more deeper questions. But like, what do you feel like was your most meaningful contribution to here at Agape Flights?
Oh, you're asking the communications person.
I can tell you what it is once you give me your answer.
Goodness, I should be prepared for that because
you want me to give you my answer?
Yes.
Your organization. For me, it has set me up for success. Every predecessor, you know, you want to have something, you want a foundation. You gave me a foundation.
Oh, well,
you gave me something that I could build off of and put my own spin on it. But at the end of the day, you showed me what Agape's visions, what Agape's calling was through that foundation.
Oh, well,
so that's what you left me.
Good. I'm glad.
For me, not that anyone asked.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shelly, you as well.
No, I couldn't, because I got a preview of the questions as well. And one of the things, just one, because there's so many with you, Abby, because you're like an onion. There's so many beautiful layers to you.
Shrek.
Yeah, I was going to have to say, are you calling her an ogre?
No. Oh, you kids. One of the things that I love about you personally and that I got to see professionally is your passion and your compassion for all the things, all the ways that Jesus is working. Yes, it shone brightly here in your work, but I know that it wasn't just here. It was in your personal life. It was in your personal ministry endeavors as well. And to see your passion came out in a lot of ways. First and foremost, it comes out in just your being and your smile. But in your writing, I remember being moved to tears on more than one occasion after reading some things that you wrote so heartfeltly. And that's not easy to do. That's not, you made it look easy, but it's not. And that was just so strong. That passion was so strong, and belief. I will also say that you've alluded to that a little bit when I'm talking about trusting in God, but your strong sense of belief that God is near was strengthening to me for so many years.
It'll make me cry.
You didn't know that's the main reason we brought you on this podcast. We just wanted to heap blessings on you for what you did for
well,
us.
You did.
Absolutely.
You have blessed me immensely. So I'm in the thick of it with raising littles in the summer. So this is a nice,
nice little respite.
Nice little respite. Is there any stories that you told or moments that you captured that just, still make you emotional when you think about it? I'm not trying to make you cry. I'm sorry.
No, there are a lot if I go back through it. Obviously, we talked about the abduction and the burning of the plane. That, and in the season of life I was in, that was a tough one. That was very tough. But then there were times. So I even think about this. I had this mug out the other day, and I should have brought it for a visual on this podcast. But there's a mug, and we have it as an ad as well. And there's a little girl on there, and she's in a pink shirt and just has the sweetest smile. This girl was left abandoned at a clinic, okay? But this girl has been in ads for Agape Flights that have brought donors from all over because they see her sweet, beautiful smile. Like, you look into her eyes and you're instantly captured, right? But this was a girl that was just left at a clinic because she was sick and they didn't want to deal with her, and her parents just left. And this was the girl that was like clinging on me at the clinic, like, because she just wants to go home with you, she just wants someone to love her. And this is the girl that's on my coffee mug daily, and coffee mugs all over. There's an Agape mug with her face on it. And I think that is a girl who probably thinks, I have no purpose. I have no, I was left. I don't know what she's doing now. This was years ago, But that girl and her sweet smile has brought, I can't believe how many like donors and conversations, and just from her face being on things. Because I used to struggle with this. I used to really struggle going to Haiti and taking video and picture of like their misfortune. And then I had to flip this and think, no, because of like those sweet smiles, they are impacting for Christ. You don't know who they touched to provide a donation that provided medical supplies that saved not just one life, but hundreds of lives, And so I really struggled with that. And that's one thing that I had a hard time with. And I had to like flip that perspective. And I just always think of her like clinging on to me. So that's where the story that goes back to you. I see that, and I just see her just clinging on, like she just wanted someone to love her and care for her. And at that same clinic, that same day I was there, a child just covered head to toe, and I guess it was ant bites. I mean, every inch of their body, and they just lay there, and they just, again, their parents can't afford to take care of them, so they've left them at this clinic. And those are the ones that just, I wish I could just take them and help them all, but we are helping them. It's just everyone has their part in helping them. So whether it's that girl's face, on the mug or the ad and that sweet smile, whether it's communications or donor development, whatever your piece is, whether it's, loading boxes in the cargo area, we all have a piece of that. And that's the beautiful message of Agape. So it can bring me to tears when I think of that, but I think everyone has their little piece of what they can do. And Haiti it's heartbreaking when you're there, but then there are days with so much beauty there. The landscape can be beautiful in areas. And then there's, I've gone to like the Center Lumiere where, you see boxes of thread here, and that's pretty boring, right? They stitch like these women learn how to create these crafts that they stitch these beautiful, everything you can think of, textiles, and they sell them and they provide a living for their family, So yeah, there's so many emotional things, I guess, that I probably can't even go through and mention them, but just to bring it back, you can get emotional about it. You just have to know your place in your piece of how you're working to make it better, right?
Wise words, Abby.
That is very wise words.
Wise.
Well, let me finish with one final question. This podcast is called the Agape Purpose. How would you define the Agape Purpose?
Love. Yeah, and I think it all comes down to love. My favorite verses and my life verse is let all that you do be done in love. And 1 Corinthians, right? Yeah. And but I think that so much of Agape, it truly comes from love, because like we said, there's, you don't just buy an airplane that you can't fly or maintain like Keith and Clara without love and a bigger purpose and vision. You don't do this for 45 years without love, right?
Yeah.
There's this, I really think that the purpose is rooted in love, because if you don't have that and you don't have the heart for it, then
we're just a mail service, really.
Exactly.
I should have asked, is there any questions you have for her?
I would love to just share the story of the people that popped in yesterday, the real brief version of it, because it connects directly with you, and just that a little bit into that trust me type, trust me, God speaking, that you've been sharing throughout this podcast. So we had a couple stop by yesterday, some donors, Pie in the Sky sponsors. And when asked, I've interacted with them a little bit over the years, but I either have met them once or yesterday was the first day. But they were delightful. And when asked, so what's your connection to Agape? They said, it's a really great story. We were walking on the beach on Anna Maria Island.
Oh.
And they had been in a season of prayer in their life about what's next for us, God? Where would you have us serve? What would you have us do? And as he told it, he said, at that moment, we looked down and there was a business card in the sand, and it hadn't been water washed or anything. It looked like it hadn't been there very long. And they looked down and picked it up, and it was Abby's business card for Agape Flights. Of all places, of all times.
That's wild.
I'm learning your business strategy. Now we just leave our business card on the beach.
Our business cards on the
That's
beach.
funny, because I never had them when I needed them. I guess they were all at the beach.
That's right. That's right.
God knew exactly where to leave that particular one. that, had an impact on this couple. They said that they did end up contacting you and having a conversation with you. And that yesterday they were here to not only say hello, but they shared with us kind of how the journey that God's been taking them on, even in like this last decade, and how now that they're moving away from like working full time, and how he's moving them into ministry in the Dominican Republic.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal.
And while that wasn't anything intentional that you did, it's just such a beautiful way to illustrate how God will use us in ways that perhaps we don't even recognize. But yet, when they called, you answered. And that must have been a fantastic conversation with them.
I actually totally forgot about that until I would have not remembered that at all.
It was just a neat story.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah,
That
you
is
could tell
cool.
their hearts were they're on fire for service, which is
Yes.
so
I love
unique.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. God's amazing how he puts those puzzle pieces together
Yes.
and creates those little whispers and sometimes shouts. And
Well, it's so unique about Agape is like it's never just, I just drove past or something. There's always some personal connection. Like God, I don't want to, speak difficult, but like it's like God goes a little bit over the top for connections at Agape. And I just love that. Like it's
Yeah.
never, just I drove past. It's always like, well, I was walking on the beach and I said, God, what am I supposed to do? Boom, business card for Abby. Like that's just so cool.
that is cool.
Like that, see, it makes my job so easy sometimes when it's like that. Because then it's like I get to tell a story of the true power of God
Absolutely.
and everything that's done. So that's just my little rant. Well, Abby, thank you so much for joining. Me and Shelly are just blessed to,
blessed.
be in your presence, hear the struggles that you have that I deal with. I enjoy that. That's a little selfish for me, but then again,
That's okay. You need that sometimes.
yes. So thank you so much.
Right? Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we're gonna have to have more because I know you have more stories.
There's more.
Yeah.
There's a gold mine there.
Till next time, though. All
right.
right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please tune in next week. Hopefully, we have a special missionary. Hopefully, gonna be in next week. Hopefully, if not, he'll still be a great person. But until then, God bless.